don't want is daft, dither and delay. And this Prime Minister, of course, represents all of those three things. Dither. In a sense, I am joyous. We at Reform are joyous. We've just completely smashed it last Thursday in the local elections when voters said, after May 2025 and the success of our brilliant 10 councils where we have majority control, voters have said we want more reform. And that surely heightens the arrogance and the stubbornness of this dreadful government. "86 years ago today, on the 13th of May 1940, Britain's greatest and most popular Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, rose to give his first speech as Prime Minister. At a time of war, he said he could offer nothing but blood, sweat and tears. And 86 years later, we have heard from Britain's most unpopular, possibly the worst Prime Minister ever. After just 22 months, Madam Deputy Speaker, all we have had is failure, incompetence and negligence. And we have a programme of government in this King's Speech that in a sense represents everything that this Prime Minister currently that we suffer under represents. Process and regulation. Process and regulation. And the thing about that is that that just drives up costs. And there is nothing that I can see in this programme of government that will actually reduce bills, will reduce the cost of living. I'll come back to you, my good sir. That will reduce the cost of living and that will drive up growth, drive up prosperity and drive up the quantity of jobs. But I will give way to my honourable member.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He talks about regulation. Would he enlighten or educate me? Because I have failed to identify a successfully self-regulating industry anywhere in the world. When you remove regulations, you harm consumers, animals, nature and the planet. So please, can you enlighten me or educate me on what the alternative is?
So the honourable gentleman refers, what we want, Madam Deputy Speaker, is smart and safe regulation. Yes. What we don't want is daft, dither and delay. And this Prime Minister, of course, represents all of those three things: dither, daftness and delay. But in a desire, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, to be constructive, I have scoured this bill and I have found some good news. And the greatest news of this programme for government is there is one bill where this government has copied and learnt from Reform, listened to what I said almost exactly a year ago, when I said we must nationalise British steel and invest in it and grow in it so that it becomes the heart of our sovereign steel-making capability. And although it is somewhat delayed after a year, thankfully, this Prime Minister has listened to me and Reform. And there is another important area, Madam Deputy Speaker, which is in the critical issue of special educational needs and the government's plans for a bill to follow the White Paper. And this is incredibly important to so many children and parents across all of our constituencies. And I actually think that in the White Paper, produced by the Secretary of State some weeks ago, I said in this House that there will be much, hopefully, that can reassure parents. And as we look at the details of that bill, what I hope is that some of the measures that are brought forward that will give better outcomes for children, faster outcomes for children, that will reduce the the conflict between parents and councils, I would urge this government to try and accelerate some of those measures for the benefit of so many children. I think that is absolutely vital. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is some very bad news in this bill, I regret to say. And the first of that is that when we all talk about the crisis of our energy bills and our electricity bills, the plans for an energy independence bill will make things dramatically worse and completely unbelievably, ignoring all the evidence of the growth of the 80s and the 90s in the last century when we were growing at 2.5% to 4% most years because we used the great energy treasure in the North Sea of oil and gas. This government thinks it's a good idea, it's not, it's a terrible idea, to ban all new exploration of any more oil and gas fields. Unbelievable. We must be the only nation in the world with the joy and the pleasure and the treasure of oil and gas that says, no, it's a good idea to leave it down there. It's unbelievably incompetent, it is negligent, and it is the reason that we have such high energy bills. And it's an absolute tragedy, because that could drive up the growth and the prosperity. So we must absolutely ensure that that does not happen. My other deep concern, deepest concern of all in this programme of government, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that, in a sense, I am joyous. We at Reform are joyous. We've just completely smashed it last Thursday in the local elections when voters said, after May 2025 and the success of our brilliant 10 councils where we have majority control, voters have said we want more reform. They have said they've given us 10 more councils to have full control of, another 9 more councils where we are the largest party. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
The Honourable for giving way. He says they want more of it. Well, we've had lots of Reform councillors elected in the past year, and we've had a Reform councillor in my patch of Stevenage. When the voters had the first opportunity to actually give their view on that performance, he was turfed out, and we got a Labour councillor back in. So, is that really true?
Clearly, the honourable gentleman may not have looked at the data, but the data shows that we have secured some 1,450 new councillors, and I think the Labour Party have lost well over 1,000 new councillors to the benefit of our great country, Madam Deputy Speaker. I will share the love by giving away to the honourable lady.
I am most grateful to the honourable member for Boston and Skegness, but does he, in talking about the successes of reform in England, not recognise that it is possibly the bombast and the predilection for foreign money which means that Plaid Cymru now holds Welsh Government in Wales and Reform does not?
I congratulate Plaid Cymru on this success, of course, but I also note the success of Reform in the second largest party in Wales, and we are indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, proud to be the largest unionist party across Scotland and, of course, Wales. I will, of course, give way once more to the...
I thank the honourable member for giving way. I believe in Milton Keynes, the Reform Party was forecast to win 26 seats, but after the honourable member's visit, that went down to 9. Does that not prove that the more they get to see of you, the less they, the more they get to see of the honourable member and his party, the less they want them?
Well, it's interesting because actually, Madam Deputy Speaker, I spent most of the election campaign in the West Midlands, and in the West Midlands we absolutely smashed it, securing full control of councils like Newcastle-under-Lyme and Walsall, and we are now the largest party, of course, in Birmingham. Truly remarkable, as indeed we're the largest party in Bradford. Also, fantastic news. But Madam Deputy Speaker, this success is because actually voters have looked at this government, the failures of this Prime Minister, and they have said, we want to vote Reform and we want this Prime Minister out. And I suspect what we have seen, just bear with me because I'm in full flow. What we have seen, I believe, is the last important speech from this Prime Minister. Let's see what the next few days bring, but I give way to the honourable lady.
And for giving way, he mentions Bradford District and notes the fact that Reform got the largest number of seats. But will he also recognise that the vast majority, 3/4 of people across the Bradford District, voted for parties other than Reform UK? And will he recognise that whilst they got seats, they are not popular?
Clearly, if we've just won and become the largest party in Bradford, by definition, we must be popular. Now, obviously, I'd like to please everybody, but sometimes even that is not possible. That's the joy of democracy. No, the reality is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the voters have spoken. I have given way to the honourable gentleman. I feel people may have enjoyed my dialogue and others wish to speak. But the key thing is that the utter failure of this programme of government is that they now think it's a good idea, having listened to the voters from last week who've said we want, in the Midlands and in the North, in those Labour heartlands, who voted 10 years ago, they wanted less EU, they wanted less European interference. What is this government's brilliant response? How have they listened to the voters from last week? They have stuck two fingers up to the former Labour voters in the Midlands, in the Northern heartlands, and they said, we're going to ignore you. We're going to try and go back to the failing European Union. And that surely heightens the arrogance and the stubbornness of this dreadful government. And actually, I will give way to this good-looking gentleman.
Immensely grateful to my constituency neighbour for giving way. I agree with a lot of what he said about the failure of successive governments who represent what the Leader of the Opposition described earlier as the political class I would describe as the liberal orthodoxy. There's been a liberal left orthodoxy which has prevailed in this country over successive governments, and it has been at the odds of the sentiments, the wishes, the hopes, the fears of the vast majority of ordinary people. It's not just his party, it's for my party certainly, and respectfully I might say to all political parties, to recognise that gulf between the establishment's view of the world and the people's.
I thank you. Well, that's the joy of competition. At the moment, we seem to be winning the competition based on the elections last week. But I conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying, surely this government should have listened to voters last week and said, actually, we've got it wrong on energy. We need to have more oil and gas to bring the bills down like they bring them down in the United States. We need to be more sovereign independent and more distant from the failing economic model of Brussels. But no, they've done the opposite. But I bring hope, Madam Deputy Speaker, to this country, because once there is a new Labour Prime Minister, unelected, the good news is that will accelerate a general election when the country will vote reform. Yeah.